Greetings everyone, my name is Zetterville, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Make a Good Mega Man Level Contest 2, or Magmal 2 for short. During the last part, I completed the stages Beneath Sand and Rock, as well as Quarantine Woman. And my apologies for the next several months hiatus for this series. I wanted to complete more parts for my Mega Man Maker series, but I lost track of time. Plus I wanted to clear up my queue of year submitted levels, but I kept getting more and more levels, but thankfully off screen, I've emptied the majority of the queue. So hopefully I'll be able to complete the rest of this LP series, or at the very least several levels in Tier X or the other post-game content. I will guarantee you that I will complete the Wily Fortress. And off screen, I downloaded the Metal Man custom costume by Babaradu. All the weapons and utilities work about the same way outside the Rush Jet, Rush Coil, as well as the Sakugarne. Rush Coil is a Springer enemy or Spring-On enemy from Mega Man 2. Rush Jet is a sideways facing mole. And the Sakugarne is whatever this thing is. But I guess it suits Metal Man. Needleman does have a point over here. Just imagine the enormous cost that was put into building this entire facility in all these areas and all the teleporters, as well as hiring the roadmasters, cameos, facility staff, etc, etc. Perhaps it comes from the same place as Dr. Light, as well as Dr. Wily's almost unlimited budget, and maybe some shadowy figures. Who knows? After all, we have off-planetary mining happening. We learned that in Mega Man 3. If you remember from Magmal 1, Glassman was the winner of that competition. And I agree with Glassman. As long as the level designers learn something new from the experiences, what works, what doesn't work, as well as good level design tenets and what else to focus on in the next competition, that being Magmal 3, I'll say they'll be winners. After all, I'd say that learning something new from this experience is better than winning. So next up, in 4th place, is Neapolitan Man by Blackmore Darkwing, aka Mick Galbani, aka the 4th judge of Magmal 1, with an average score of 43.8. This is my second or third favorite contestant entry out of them all. It has 1 energy element as well as 5 noble nickels. And out of all the contestant entries, if I were to submit one level to be in an actual Capcom NES Mega Man title, or NES style title, this would be my top entry. I would say this is the best traditional level out of them all, and I'll explain why throughout this stage. Nice introduction of those curlingers down over there. This is one of the things that the stage does really well, one of the best in this contest I'd say. Good introduction of enemies and gimmicks in safe environments, and gradually increasing the challenge and recombining with other enemies and other gimmicks. Here's our first unique enemy of the stage, these flip buckets. They don't do anything over here, but they move around these Guts Lift platforms basically. So nice safe introduction over there where it can't attack you. Whenever these flip buckets reach the points where the Guts platforms don't exist, they'll drop their load of ice cream at you. So nice introduction of the flip buckets and how they work, as well as the owl owls or the seals. Here's our next unique enemy of this stage. These are called cone cannons. As you may notice, they alternate what shot pattern they do. The vanilla shots they fire in the 4 cardinal directions, or rather the 4 diagonal directions. The chocolate shot fires in the cardinal directions north, south, east, west, whereas the final strawberry shot fires in an A spread. And it befits this stage's theme of Neapolitan, those being the 3 ice cream flavors of vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. And to the right is our first mini-boss of the stage. This is called the Mixer Lydia, the first flavor, the vanilla flavor. It basically just goes into this, I believe it's a vanilla vat, and sucks in or mixes all of the vanilla vat and tries to attack you with that, then it moves upwards and tries to drop all those remnants of the vanilla. All of the noble nickels of this stage are optional and put in these optional pathways. If you want, you can just safely go by and complete this stage faster by ignoring them, but of course I'll go for all the noble nickels. But as you see over here, that adds about 10 to 15 screens more onto the stage's length. Also adding to the feel of this ice cream themed stage is the fact that all these floors, or the majority of floors, are iced over. And there's our first noble nickel, the easiest out of the 5 to get. We transitioned over from the vanilla segment over to the chocolate segment. I do like these stage transitions, and they also befit this stage's theme. Almost everything of this stage befits the stage's theme of the tree flavored ice cream. Those enemies up there, they're called hard swerves. If they slam into a wall, they instantly destroy themselves, but if you go to the right of them, they'll continuously drop all these ice cream cones at you. Here's the other gimmick of this stage. These are called waffle platforms. These act like Chillman blocks, though they are more durable because they take 4 hits to destroy. I do like how they're introduced first in a safe environment where it's less likely you'll die, and now over a vat of instant death chocolate. Well, not instant death chocolate, but at least a bottomless pit. Also, the first 2 instances of the hard swerves, you couldn't actually destroy them, or they couldn't ram into you, but now they can. So nice escalation of challenges here. The next alternate route. Up there is the second noble nickel. And in order to get this one, I need to go to the right. Also, nice reskinning of those flip bucket enemies to be chocolate flavored now. Another nice touch and attention to detail. And there's the key. However, we gotta be a bit careful because these wafers still stay cracked on our way back. Also, unlike the Chillman blocks, you can't shoot them to quickly crack them. Only way of cracking them further and further is by jumping on them. And there's our second noble nickel. 3 left to go. And here's our second gimmick of the stage, these melt blocks. As illustrated by the hard swerves over there, these off-color darker ones, if you stand on them, they'll immediately melt. It's a nice introduction of this gimmick using an enemy type. Many times in Mega Man, the gimmicks are introduced not with enemies but with players walking into them or experiencing it for themselves, so nice touch using an enemy over here. And no, if you jump on top of the melt blocks, you won't have enough time to jump off it again before it dissipates. We're gradually putting these melt blocks in more dangerous environments, like here over spikes. And now we fight the second instance of Mixer Lydia, the strawberry version. I do like the nice touch of how it uses the remnants of the strawberry shake in order to attack me. Though you can quickly whittle it down because it doesn't have any invulnerability frames. Probably could have a little bit more health. Now these alternate pathways lead to the Noble Nickels. If you go to the right, you will not be able to backtrack. So let's take the upper route first. I say this is the most difficult Noble Nickel to get of them all, and you'll see why soon enough. Again, another nice touch with those flip bucket enemies being recolored to be strawberry flavored. I wish the steels as well as the curlingers were also recolored to fit the flavor of the stage they were in. Like here they would be more pinkish tinted because there's more strawberry flavored. Same with these cannon enemies. Then again, they fire the 3 types of flavors, so I guess it makes sense. And now we fight the third and final flavor of Mixer Lydia. I say it's the hardest version because, well, we fight it on top of these wafers. And if you destroy all the wafers, your only place to stand is on the right unless you destroy the boss first. So easily the hardest version, and it's the optional one, so you can safely ignore it if you want. So now on to the 4th Noble Nickel route. Yeah, I wasn't fast enough over there. The big eyes can of course destroy the wafers as well, similar to the chill blocks and other enemies. Thankfully the checkpoint's right over here. And yes, the big guy was holding a key over there, so you can't just run past it. But even with that big guy over there, I'll still say that upper route had the most difficult Noble Nickel to get due to the mini-boss over there. Now onto the final segment of the stage. In the first part of the stage we had the vanilla flavoring, second part chocolate flavoring, third part strawberry flavoring, and now we have Neapolitan flavoring, aka all 3 flavorings at once, as you can see over here. And we have a combination of all the gimmicks and enemies right over here. Like you can see, we have the melt blocks as well as the wafers. Now we can just run to the right and face Neapolitan Man immediately, but I'll take the upper route in order to get the 5th and final Noble Nickel. After all, these are optional collectibles. And Blackmore or Darkwing definitely understands that. Overall, this stage is a joy to play. I like the overall team, and I like how most of the enemies and gimmicks follow the team. And the music is wonderful as well, pretty peppy, pretty upbeat. The only main suggestions I have of this stage would be to recolor the curlingers, the seals, and maybe the heart swerves to better fit the current flavor we're in. The current flavor teaming, I mean. That was a bad jump on my part. Alright, Sakugarne time. Oh, apparently riding on the Sakugane doesn't trigger the melting blocks. Well, there's something I didn't know, but it makes that challenge a cinch. Also, here are the 3 different flavors of the flip buckets. And this drops us in the boss arena, or boss corridor I mean. So let's face Neapolitan Man over here. And yes, he has 2 different health bars. And halfway through the fight, those platforms on the left and right, they vanish. Those are the same projectiles that are fired by those cannons, by the way. So nice reusing of assets, and telegraphing I mean. I could have used an E-Tank over there, but I want to defeat this boss buster only. It's a pretty fun boss fight, although it's a lot easier than some of the previous bosses like Quarantine Woman, as well as Centipeder. Even though he has 2 health bars, he's rather slow and leaves a lot of openings, so it makes up for that. And there's some obvious blind spots over here if you stand to the left while those platforms are up. Overall, a pretty fun boss fight. I'd say he's one of the easier bosses of tier 10 overall. Maybe not the easiest, but one of the easier ones. But overall, this stage was a joy to play through. Overall, great teaming and great cohesiveness. I only have some minor complaints, but they're rather small quibbles overall. Like reskinning some of the enemies to better fit the flavors. That's why it's my second or third favorite stage out of all the contestant levels. And this is one of those best stages in the competition that pretty well utilizes, not pretty well, extremely well utilizes introduction of gimmicks and enemies, versed in safe environments isolation and then recombining it later. We saw it in the last section just before the boss arena. And all of the collectibles are placed in optional areas for more skilled players. This was especially the case with that 5th and final Noble Nickel, and the 3rd Noble Nickel where I needed to fight Mixer Lydia a 3rd time. Ace does have a point with the second mini-boss fight because it doesn't have much difference either. There was a difference with the first and third encounters though because of the change in the arena, but here with the second not so much. Maybe change up the attacks there. He does justify his double health bar with his variety attacks and the fact that he is a bit slower. The amount of time that happens between each of the attacks, there's enough time for players to react. It's not really a fast-paced battle. It's like a medium-paced battle. So if I were to score this level right now based on my first impression, well not really first impressions, it would get a 46 or 47. Smashing job, Blackmore Darkwing. There's only one more stage that did better than this one, personally speaking. I don't recall where Plum originated from. I think it was from Mega Man Battle and Chase. I'm not sure. Off screen, I decided to swap over my custom costume of Metal Man for a custom costume of Peterchi, an enemy from Mega Man 3. This was designed by the user Mysterion Sven. Now I actually wanted to equip a custom costume of Skullman, but I wasn't able to find one. The reason why I wanted to equip one of those is because of the level to the right of me. But before I enter that stage, let's take a look at the different utilities that Peterchi has access to, specifically the Rush utilities in Sakugarne. Rush Jet is the Hansu B enemies from, I believe, Hardman stage. Rush Coil is the Springer enemies or Springen enemies from Magnet Man's level. And the Sakugarne is the Lekken enemy from Sparkman's stage. I think Peterchi was also introduced in Sparkman's level, but I don't recall exactly. All of these enemies originate from Mega Man 3, by the way. And I see down there we have a golden statue of Otter for 3rd place. Speaking of which, in 3rd place is Haunt Man by Korby Freeman, with an average score of 45.0. This is the only collab entry submission. Back when Magmul 2 was accepting entries, we all had the option of collaborating with up to one other person and submitting a stage in a collaboration. Only Korby and Freeman did so, and based off of their high ranking, a lot of other people will do so in Magmul 3. I know I will. 1 energy element and 2 noble nickels. Now, I'm actually re-recording the footage and commentary for this level because during my first playthrough, in retrospect, I was way too harsh on this level. In comparison to the previous stage, which I would rate as being my 2nd or 3rd favorite contestant entry of them all, this is my 6th or 7th. This isn't a bad stage at all, it just feels kind of lacking in a few areas, but those are kind of more minor to moderate quibbles. I'd still put this in tier 10. Just under Launch and Shuttle Man, actually. So our first enemy type here is the Medusa bots. They act kind of like killer bullets and like the Medusa enemies from Castlevania, although a lot less dangerous. And this stage takes place in a graveside / haunted tower. That enemy down there is called the Skelly Follow. It throws a skeleton head at you and then runs around crazily left to right. Both the head and body can damage you, so you gotta be a bit careful. It seems that they can't drop down from their current elevation though, so keep that in mind because it makes them a bit easier. The stage's aesthetics and music do fit, but honestly I like the brighter color scheme and more peppy music of Neapolitan Man. Also, that bright red shield attacker sticks out. That probably should have been reskinned to be a skeleton white or something. And down over there we have those ghosty enemies. They're basically just spines. Although unlike spines, you cannot target them whatsoever, and they won't blink off your shots. And down over here we have the main gimmick of the stage, the ghost floors. Basically, the foreground doesn't exist, the actual level layout is in the background here. I would have preferred if there were spikes down there to better introduce it, but I suppose this works. The first of these segments was pretty easy, but it well introduced the gimmick. That's a pretty interesting running animation there. And we are seeing here the Medusa bots are spawning in at regular intervals like killer bullets. And I suppose this is the haunted tower. We have a nice combination of enemies and almost all of them fit this stage's aesthetic. Like all the Skeleton Boss, Skeleton Joes, the Medusa Pumpkin Boss, the Ghosties. The only enemy that really stands out are those bright red shield attackers. But those can easily be reskinned and are kind of a minor quibble. But in comparison to the previous stage where all the enemies fit with the stage's aesthetics, it stands out a bit more. Also of note is that the ghosties only will spawn in these areas where you can see the blocks of those ghost pictures, I presume. And I wish the stage had at least one more noble nickel. I mean, there are plenty of places to hide it, especially in comparison with the previous stage, where all the 5 noble nickels were placed in more challenge areas, whereas in this one it's only in 2 areas specifically. Good checkpoint placement. At least I suppose this is a checkpoint. And now we're back out again. I always think that these are part of the background, but no, they're actually part of the foreground. But I do like the combination of enemies and gimmicks, mainly the different types of enemies here. And unlike Neapolitan Man, which had 2 gimmicks, those being the wafers or waffle platforms, as well as those melt blocks, this only really has the ghost floors. And honestly, I wish they were taken a bit further, but I'll explain that in more detail once I get to the end of this level. And this is the final stretch of this level, where we have the second and most difficult track of the ghost floors. It looks like you can still target enemies in the foreground, but it's easier to look at the background only, but it still messes with your head a bit. And I do like how we're using almost all the enemy types we were introduced in this stage in its final segment. Outside the Medusa bots though. That's a bit of a missed opportunity. And there's the second and final noble nickel. It's kind of out there in the open, but you need to be a bit careful of where the blocks actually are. And that's it, that's the end of the stage. This is why I say the stage is a bit lackluster and disappointing. The stage was starting to get pretty good at this point, but then it just ends. I suppose this is following the standard format of a Mega Man level, a Mega Man Classic stage being 20 to 25 screens long, just like on the NES, but honestly, it has a nice difficulty curve, sure, but I wish there was a third and final segment of the ghost floors, and I wish the stage focused more on the ghost floors, maybe have a vertical segment of the tower being a ghost floor or ghost building segment. Convert one of those and this stage would stand out more for me. Because I feel that the stage could have gone a bit further with a third and final leg, where we combine all of the enemies that we've encountered before, and then get to the boss fight against Haunt Man. But as it stands right now, I feel like this stage could have been explored further, but unfortunately the collaboration team didn't. This is especially juxtaposed with Neapolitan Man, which did really well utilize and explore all of its gimmicks to its full potential, but here it doesn't really feel like it explored the full potential. The stage doesn't feel messy, it just feels like it's not living up to how far the gimmick can be taken. Perhaps it'll be taken further in a Wily Fortress level, or in Magmal 3 in some regards. The gimmick isn't bad, it's pretty enjoyable, but I just wish it was explored further, especially considering this is a collaboration stage. I was expecting more from those 2 authors. But as I repeatedly stated, I still believe this stage belongs in the upper half of Tier 10, or at least the lower half, but very close to the upper half. And here we fight Haunt Man. Take note of those 2 statues in the background. Haunt Man starts out by possessing the statue to the left, the Knight statue. Of note is the fact that even normal shots deal 3 points of damage. Well, actually they deal 2 points of damage. The medium charge shots deal 3 points of damage, whereas the full charge shots deal 4 points of damage, so it makes that part of the fight a lot easier. The second statue is of a mage, and this is easily the hardest part of the fight, especially when he decides to do that electric bolt attack. But honestly, the full charge shot doesn't need to deal 4 points of damage, it makes the boss fight too easy. And his turn final state, if you stand over here, Haunt Man is really easy to destroy. Also of note is that after you complete each phase of the Haunt Man encounter, he'll drop a large life energy, which is really helpful. Normal Buster Shots deal 7 points of damage, and full Buster Shots here deal 14 points of damage. The third and final phase is easily the easiest part of the fight and kinda disappointing. I wish he had a much better fighting chance and he didn't have a blind spot where you're completely safe from his attacks. I mean, reduce the amount of damage he takes in each phase by 1 because he always drops the large life energy upon each phase, so there's no need to make him more vulnerable to attacks. That, combined with the missing potential of the ghost floors, is what brought down the stage for me. Otherwise, the stage design and introduction to enemies were pretty good. I would place Neapolitan Man, Launch and Shuttle Man, as well as another stage over this one, the other stage being Quarantine Woman. The setups with the shield attackers and the ghosty devils were pretty nice. Although I wouldn't exactly call them well, they are kind of like devils, but they are completely invulnerable to everything, unlike some things like the glue devils. Pyro's right in that regard with the fake enemies. Difficulty curve of the stage was great too, though it is much easier than the previous stage by far. The Ghost Block or VR gimmick was pretty awesome, but I just wish it was taken further. That's going to be my main takeaway for this level. Great design, great ideas, but a little bit missed potential in regards to the main gimmick and the boss fight. Though the boss fight was pretty good too, it's just the final phase and the fact it took too much damage. In fact, I wouldn't mind if there was a fourth phase added in between the second and third phases where Haunt Man possesses an archer statue. After all, we have the knight, we have the mage, might as well complete the RPG trio by possessing an archer. If that was added, I wouldn't mind if each of the statues took 4 points of damage per charge shot. This was a pretty solid Halloween themed stage. Ace hits the nail on the head here. Wonderful idea, but gameplay wise is implemented simply. Just imagine how crazy this gimmick could be taken if it was implemented in Mega Man Maker. Oof, I can imagine how it would be combined with all other gimmicks. That's my other main takeaway of this stage. I wish this gimmick was open source or something or re-implemented in another engine, and other fan game creators took a crack at it. Oh, and recolor the shield attacker to have a more skeleton feel. Because in Neapolitan Man, all the enemies fit the stage's feel, but the red shield attacker kinda sticks out. Unless that's supposed to illustrate blood. I know it's kind of a minor quibble, but once you get to the higher tier 10s, minor quibbles become much more important when separating rankings at different levels. That didn't happen to me mainly because of how slow Nightman is and how his hitbox is a bit misleading. It's not that difficult to jump over him, basically. Also of note, the Knight had fire attacks, the Mage had lightning and ice attacks. If there's an archer, would it be earth-based attacks? Ah yes, Gradius final boss flashbacks. So, if I were to score this stage based off my impressions, it would probably be a 42 or 43. So in the next part, I'll be covering my favorite entry stage of them all. Well then, thanks for watching and have a nice day. Toodles!